June 15th, 2021, 4:30 p.m. I was standing in my dealership in Detroit. 40,000 square feet, 120 used cars on the lot. A 2021 Ford F-150 Raptor was parked in the front row. I had paid $68,000 for it at auction 3 weeks earlier. A guy drove from Chicago that morning. He paid $86,000. Cash. He didn't negotiate. He didn't test drive. He just handed me a check and left. I watched his taillights disappear onto the highway. I never saw him again. My name is Doug. I was 48 years old. I own a used car dealership called Motor City Auto Group. I started in 2005 with a small lot on the south side of Detroit. 20 cars. A trailer for an office. No heat in the winter. No AC in the summer. I sat in that trailer for 5 years. I ate lunch out of a cooler. I wore a coat at my desk. I built it myself. Every customer. Every sale. Every dollar. I earned it. By 2019, I had 300 cars. 15 employees. $12 million in annual revenue. Profit, $800,000 a year. I was comfortable. I was not rich. I had a nice house in the suburbs. $450,000. A 2018 Ford F-150. A small fishing boat. Nothing crazy. I was happy. I was proud of what I built. Then, the pandemic hit. March 2020. Everything shut down. I didn't know if I would survive. I laid off 10 employees. I kept 5. I worked 80 hours a week. I answered phones. I cleaned toilets. I washed cars. I did whatever it took to keep the lights on. Then the chip shortage started. Then the supply chain collapsed. New cars stopped coming from factories. Ford shut down. Toyota shut down. Honda shut down. People couldn't buy new cars anywhere. They came to me. Used car prices went insane. I had never seen anything like it in 16 years. In March 2020, a 2018 Toyota Camry was worth $14,000. In March 2021, the same car was worth $22,000. A 2019 Honda CR-V went from $18,000 to $28,000. A 2020 Ford F-150 went from $35,000 to $52,000. A 2017 Jeep Wrangler went from $28,000 to $41,000. A 2018 Tesla Model 3 went from $38,000 to $54,000. A 2019 Ram 1500 went from $32,000 to $48,000. Everything I touched turned to gold. I bought every car I could find. I went to auctions in Ohio, Indiana, Illinois. I bought cars from people's driveways. I bought cars from estate sales. I bought cars from guys who had lost their jobs and needed cash fast. I paid $15,000 for a car worth $20,000. I paid $25,000 for a car worth $35,000. I paid $40,000 for a car worth $60,000. I didn't negotiate. I just handed over cashier's checks. I borrowed money. Lots of money. I took a $2 million line of credit from Comerica Bank. My loan officer was a woman named Diane. She had been my banker for 10 years. She trusted me. I took another $1.5 million from Huntington. I took $800,000 from a private lender named Sam. He was Russian. He wore a thick gold chain and had a heavy accent. He charged 12% interest. I didn't care. Every car I bought made me money. Every single one. In 2020, I made $1.4 million. I was 49 years old. I paid off my house. I paid off my boat. I put $400,000 in the bank. I felt like I had finally made it. In 2021, I made $3.2 million. I was 50 years old. I had $3.6 million in the bank. I had $8 million in inventory. I had $5.2 million in debt against that inventory. I was leveraged, but I was winning. I was on top of the world. I bought a mansion, $1.8 million. 6 bedrooms, 7 bathrooms, a pool, a 4-car garage, a home theater, a wine cellar. I don't drink wine. I bought it anyway. I bought a yacht, a 54-foot Sea Ray, $620,000. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, a bathroom with a shower. I named it the Prophet. I thought I was clever. I bought a private plane, a 1978 Cessna Citation, $450,000. I didn't know how to fly it. I hired a pilot named Steve. He was 62 years old. He had been flying for 40 years. He asked where I wanted to go. I said everywhere. We flew to Florida. We flew to the Bahamas. We flew to Aspen. I drank champagne at 40,000 feet. I felt like a king. I bought my wife a Mercedes G-Wagon, $165,000. She cried. She said, "I never thought we would have this." I said, "We deserve it." She hugged me. I hugged her. I'm in it. I bought myself a Lamborghini Urus, $240,000. Bright orange. I drove it to the dealership. My employees stared. My customers stared. I didn't care. I had earned it. I wore designer clothes. Gucci sneakers. $1,200. Versace shirts. $800. Tom Ford glasses. $600. I bought a Rolex for every day of the week. A Submariner. A Daytona. A GMT Master. A Datejust. A Day-Date. A Skydweller. A Yachtmaster. Total value, $180,000. I wore a different one every day. I thought people noticed. They didn't. I didn't care. I told myself the shortage would last forever. I told myself prices would keep climbing. I told myself I was smart. I was not smart. I was lucky, and luck runs out. In late 2021, the supply chain started to recover. Chip production ramped up. Ford reopened their plants. Toyota reopened. Honda reopened. New cars started arriving at dealerships. Used car prices began to fall, slowly at first, 2% in December, 3% in January. I told myself it was seasonal. Everyone slows down in winter. I told myself spring would bring higher prices. I was wrong. February 2022, prices dropped 8%. I was still up. I had $8 million in inventory. I owed $5.2 million on my lines of credit. I had $2.8 million in equity. I was fine. I told myself it was a correction. A healthy market adjustment. March 2022. Prices dropped 12%. My inventory was worth $7 million. I owed $5.2 million. Equity, $1.8 million. I started to worry. I stopped buying cars. I started selling at auction. I lost money on every car. A 2020 F-150 that I paid $52,000 for sold for $44,000. A 2019 CR-V that I paid $28,000 for sold for $22,000. A 2018 Camry that I paid $22,000 for sold for $17,000. I was bleeding. $30,000 a week. $120,000 a month. April 2022. Prices dropped another 15%. My inventory was worth $5.9 million. I owed $5.2 million. Equity, $700,000. I stopped selling at auction. I couldn't afford the losses. I tried to hold. I waited for prices to recover. They didn't. I had $8 million in cars worth $5.9 million. I had $3.6 million in cash gone. I had $5.2 million in debt. I was drowning. May 2022. Prices dropped 10%. My inventory was worth $5.3 million. I owed $5.2 million. Equity, $100,000. I was underwater. Not technically, but close. I had $12,000 in cash. I had $80,000 in credit card debt from keeping the dealership afloat. I had stopped paying myself. I had stopped paying my employees. 5 people were working for free. They believed in me. I failed them. June 2022. The bank called. Comerica. Diane, my loan officer, said, "Doug, we need to talk." I said, "I know." She said, "We need our money. $2 million. In 30 days. I said, "I don't have it." She said, "I'm sorry." She hung up. I sat in my office. I stared at the wall. I didn't move for an hour. I tried to sell inventory. No buyers. Everyone was selling. Everyone was losing. I tried to get an extension. Diane said corporate says no. I tried to refinance. Other banks said too much risk. I was alone. I sold the yacht. $380,000. Lost $240,000. The buyer was a guy from Ohio. He asked why I was selling. I said, "I need the cash." He said, "That's honest." He paid. He left. I watched the boat go down the river. I didn't wave. I sold the plane. $210,000. Lost $240,000. Steve, the pilot, helped me find a buyer. A doctor from Texas. He paid cash. Steve said, "I'm sorry, Doug." I said, "Me too." We shook hands. I never saw him again. I sold the Lamborghini. $130,000. Lost $110,000. A young guy bought it. He was 25. He had made money in crypto. He asked if I had any other cars. I said no. He said, "Too bad." He drove away. I watched the orange paint disappear around the corner. I sold my wife's G-Wagon. She didn't want to. I made her. She said, "This is my car." I said, "It's not yours. It's the bank's." She cried. I sold it for $110,000. Lost $55,000. The buyer was a real estate agent. She was happy. My wife was not. I had $720,000 from the sales. I paid Comerica $720,000. I still owed $1.28 million. They sued me. Judgment. My lawyer cost $40,000. His name was Mark. He was good. He said, "We can settle for $800,000. I said, "I don't have $800,000. He said, "Then they'll take everything." They did. July 2022. Huntington called. They wanted $1.5 million. I had $0. I defaulted. They sued. Another judgment. Another lawyer. Another $30,000. I stopped counting. August 2022. The private lender called. Sam, the Russian guy with the gold chain. He wanted $800,000. I had $0. He sent a demand letter. Then a foreclosure notice. He had a lien on my house. The house I paid off. The house I thought was mine. It wasn't. It was his. I stopped opening mail. I stopped answering my phone. I sat in my mansion. 6 bedrooms. Empty. The pool was green. The home theater was dusty. The wine cellar had 2 bottles. I drank them both. Alone. My wife had moved into the guest room. She stopped talking to me. She stopped looking at me. She ate dinner in her room. I ate dinner in the kitchen. We didn't speak for 3 weeks. September 2022. I lost the dealership. The bank seized the lot. 40,000 square feet. 120 cars. All gone. They sold everything at auction for $2.1 million. I owed $5.2 million. Deficiency, $3.1 million. I watched the auction online. A 2021 Raptor sold for $62,000. The same model I had sold for $86,000. It was someone else's loss now. October 2022. I lost the mansion. Foreclosure. Sold for $1.2 million. I owed $1.8 million on a mortgage. Deficiency, $600,000. I packed my things in 3 hours. A suitcase of clothes. A box of pictures. My wife's jewelry. She didn't want it. I took it anyway. I was 51 years old. I had $12,000 in savings. A 2015 Ford Explorer with 120,000 miles. A suitcase. A box. I moved into a studio apartment in a complex called The Meadows, $1,100 a month. The walls were beige. The carpet was gray. My neighbor had a pit bull that barked all night. I didn't complain. I deserved it. November 2022. My wife left. She moved in with her sister in Florida. She didn't say goodbye. She just left. I found a note on the kitchen counter. It said, "I can't do this anymore." I called her. She didn't answer. I texted her. She didn't respond. I haven't spoken to her since. Her sister called me once. She said, "You destroyed her." I said, "I know." She hung up. December 2022. I filed for bankruptcy. Chapter 7. The lawyer cost $5,000. I borrowed it from my brother. He didn't ask questions. He just wrote a check. He said, "You'll figure it out." I said, "I don't know." He said, "You always do." He was wrong. I didn't always figure it out. Not this time. The court discharged my debts. The judgments remained. The banks could still come after me for the deficiencies. They did. I owed Comerica $1.28 million. I owed Huntington $1.5 million. I owed Sam $800,000. I owed the mortgage company $600,000. Total, $4.18 million. I had no assets, no income, no way to pay. I ignored the letters. I ignored the calls. I ignored the process servers. They stopped coming after a year. I wasn't worth the trouble. I got a job at a dealership. Not mine. Someone else's. A guy named Jerry owned it. He was 65. He had been in the business for 40 years. He knew what happened. He said, "You got greedy." I said, "I know." He said, "Happens to the best of us." He paid me $65,000 a year. Sales manager. I sit at a desk. I call customers. I negotiate deals. I don't own anything. I don't take risks. I just work. I am 53 now. I live in the same studio. The pit bull still barks. I don't care. I have $18,000 in savings. I drive a 2017 Toyota Camry. The dealership gave it to me. Company car. I don't own it. I don't own anything. I see my kids every other weekend. My son is 19. He's in community college. He wants to be a mechanic. I told him, "Don't open a dealership." He said, "I won't." My daughter is 16. She wants to be a nurse. She doesn't talk about cars. She doesn't talk about money. She asks if I'm okay. I say I'm fine. She doesn't believe me. She hugs me anyway. I think about the Raptors sometimes. The one I sold for $86,000. The guy from Chicago. I wonder if he still has it. I wonder if he sold it for a loss. I wonder if he thinks about me. Probably not. I'm nobody to him. Just a guy who sold him a truck. I think about Jerry, my boss. He saved me. He didn't have to. He did. I show up on time. I do my job. I don't complain. I don't take risks. I just sell cars. One at a time. I think about my wife. She called me last month. First time in 2 years. She said, I'm sorry for leaving the way I did. I said, I'm sorry for losing everything. She said, it's not your fault. I said, it is. She said, maybe. She didn't disagree. She said she's dating someone. A dentist. He has a boat. A small one. I said, I'm happy for you. I meant it. I learned something. The shortage was a bubble. Everything is a bubble. Cars. Houses. Stocks. Crypto. The only difference is timing. I timed it wrong. I bought at the peak. I sold at the bottom. I borrowed too much. I believed too much. I thought I was smart. I was lucky. Luck runs out. Now I have nothing. No dealership. No mansion. No yacht. No plane. No wife. I have a studio apartment. A company Camry. A job. A boss who gave me a second chance. I am 53 years old. I have $18,000 in savings. I have $4.18 million in judgments I will never pay. I have a son and a daughter who still love me. I have a brother who still answers my calls. I'm not rich. I'm not poor. I am somewhere in between. I am here. That's not winning. That's not losing. That's living. I'll take it.